The World Wide Web has brought about the reimagining of reference sources for areas of knowledge and interest, and for the news, to take just two examples. Here, I want to talk about what the World Wide Web has done to open up and create new channels to share information and ideas, how it has allowed us to socially interact in new ways with those both near and far, with those we know and those whom we would like to get to know. Here, I want to talk about social media, the Facebooks, the Twitters, the Snapchats and others. As ever, I want to critically engage with this area of media which has developed within our digital world and yet has come to be intimately interwoven in our daily existence. Let's start with a snapshot of the growth of social media. The roots of social media have been traced back to the messenger services some of us grew up with in the late 1990s. One example is MSN, later called Windows Live Messenger. The birth of social media as we now know it has meanwhile been pinpointed to MySpace. Launched in 2003 as a way for musicians to connect and share their work, MySpace grew to 1 million monthly active users by 2004. Fast forward to today, and the idea of a social media platform with only 1 million users seems insignificant. The user base of MySpace has been dwarfed many times over by new players on the block, not least Facebook. Facebook's rise has indeed become a matter of myth, from a Harvard dorm room in 2007 to today, a platform with over 2.38 billion monthly active users. Or in other words, nearly a third of the global population. And other platforms are not far behind it. Look at this chart. Here we see the meteoric rise of the likes of YouTube and WhatsApp, and a whole host of other social media platforms. Instagram, WeChat, Tumblr, TikTok, Reddit, Twitter, Pinterest, Snapchat. At the bottom, we find MySpace. In comparison, it never really got off the ground. Currently, Facebook dominates, but other platforms are catching up, and more are emerging. So, what is it that all these platforms have in common that make them what we now term social media? Here are 3 key characteristics. Number 1, user profiles. Users, that is you and me who go to use these tools and platforms, are able to create profiles. These profiles feature details about us, or at least they give other users insight into how we want to present ourselves to any particular online community. Number 2, the ability to share content. Once we have a profile, or what we might call an account, we are granted the option of uploading content, that is, placing our own media, text, images, audio, video, on the platform on which we have created a profile. Number 3, the possibility of interacting with other users. Crucially, a social media platform allows us to interact with the content we and others upload. It provides an online space in which we can discuss this content. It is a space which brings us into contact with other users whom we might formally add to the network hosted or held on that particular platform. These characteristics show how important we as individuals are to these platforms. In other words, social media platforms rely on us as creators and consumers of content to exist. Indeed, our content, what we might call user-generated content, has been called the lifeblood of social media. This lifeblood pumps through the veins of social media platforms, keeping them alive. It is a life system which allows us to connect with others, and for others to connect with us, no matter where we or they are in the world. This is what social media now encompasses. So, the numbers are big and the options are large, but who uses what? Well, we know there is a general age divide which sees certain age groups more likely to choose certain platforms. Instagram, for example, is more popular with younger age groups. In the US, we know that the majority of young people use YouTube. By contrast, the proportion of 65s and over using the platform is much lower. We know that there are gender differences. We know that there are geographic differences. Have a think about which platforms are most used in your region or your network, for example. We know that social media accounts for a significant proportion of the time spent online, especially amongst young people, whether it is through a mobile, a computer, or another device. We know that social media has had a huge impact on societies the globe over. In the words of Max Rosa, Hannah Ritchie, and Esteban Ortiz Ospina from Our World in Data, social media has changed the world. The rapid and vast adoption of these technologies is changing how we find partners, how we access information from the news, and how we organise to demand political change. In this summation, it seems that social media has been a force for good. If we look to historical statements made by the CEOs or leaders of some of these social media companies, it seems as if this instinct to use technology for good is closely bound up with their mission. Explaining in 2007 why Facebook was not for sale, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg remarked, "For me and my colleagues, the most important thing is that we create an open information flow for people. Having media corporations owned by conglomerates is just not an attractive idea to me." The question is, do all of us who spend increasing amounts of time on Facebook and other platforms know what to do with this flow of information? Do we know how to contribute productively to it? Is access to more people and more information via social media, and indeed other portals on the internet, enriching or endangering our personal and professional lives? These are key questions. They point to the extensive opportunities and challenges our fast-changing and fast-growing digital world now presents.